The first thing you need to know about betrayal is that it always starts with something small. A phone turned face down. A new password on the laptop. A sudden interest in yoga classes that somehow never seemed to make anyone more flexible. My name is Carson Dorsey, and I'm an architect in Houston. 32 years old, decent looking if you squint, and apparently dumb enough to miss the signs that my wife was screwing around behind my back for 6 months. The second thing you need to know about betrayal is that when you finally catch on, it hits you like a freight train, loaded with concrete blocks and broken dreams. I was sitting in my home office on a Tuesday night, working on blueprints for a new strip mall, when Debbie walked in wearing that fake smile she'd been practicing in the bathroom mirror. You know the one. All teeth, no warmth, like a shark trying to sell you insurance. "Carson, honey, we need to talk," she said, clutching her phone like it contained state secrets. I looked up from my drafting table. About what? About us. About where we're going. She sat down on the edge of my desk, careful not to disturb my work. Always considerate, my Debbie. "I think we need some space to figure things out." I set down my pencil. Space. Just temporarily. I'm going to stay with my sister for a while. Give us both time to think. Here's the thing about being an architect. You learn to read structural problems before the building falls down. The foundation of our marriage had been cracking for months, and I'd been too busy measuring angles to notice the whole damn thing was about to collapse. "You know what, Deb? You're absolutely right," I said, standing up. "We do need space." Her fake smile flickered. She'd expected tears, maybe begging. Instead, I walked to our bedroom and pulled out her suitcases. "What are you doing?" "Helping you pack. You want space? You got it." 20 minutes later, I had her bags on the front porch. The neighbors were out walking their dogs, and Mrs. Henderson from across the street was definitely getting an eyeful. Perfect. "Carson, you're being ridiculous," Debbie hissed, trying to keep her voice down. "Am I? You said you needed space. I'm giving you all the space you want." She grabbed her suitcases, tears starting to flow. "This isn't what I meant." "Funny thing about words, Deb. They have meanings." That night, after she'd driven away in her little Honda, I poured myself 3 fingers of bourbon and sat in my empty house. The silence was deafening, but it was honest silence. Better than the lies that had been filling the air for months. My phone buzzed. Text from Mrs. Henderson. "Saw what happened. You okay, honey?" Then another from my buddy Raj at work. "Dude, what's going on? Debbie's posting cryptic stuff on Facebook." I ignored them both and went to bed. But sleep didn't come easy, and when it did, I dreamed about blueprints that didn't add up and foundations built on sand. The next morning, I made coffee for one and checked my email. 3 messages from Debbie, each more frantic than the last. The final one made my blood run cold. I made a mistake. "Can we please talk? There's something I need to tell you about Trevor. Trevor Lane, Debbie's yoga instructor. 6'2", abs you could wash laundry on, and apparently the kind of guy who didn't mind helping married women with their flexibility. I'd met Trevor exactly once, at a neighborhood barbecue. He'd spent the entire evening talking about his, quote, holistic approach to wellness, and his, quote, journey towards spiritual enlightenment. The kind of guy who said namaste unironically, and probably had a man bun. Now I understood why Debbie had suddenly developed such an interest in downward-facing dog. I opened my laptop and did something I'd never done before. I checked Debbie's cloud storage account. We'd shared passwords for everything since we got married. Trust, she'd called it. Transparency. What I found in a folder labeled yoga pics wasn't yoga. Dozens of selfies. Debbie and Trevor in hotel rooms, restaurants, his apartment. All time-stamped over the past 6 months. And at the bottom of the folder, a video file that made my stomach turn. Debbie, clearly drunk, giggling as she recorded herself in Trevor's bed. He'll never know, right? Carson's so clueless, always buried in his work. Poor baby has no idea his wife is getting the best workouts of her life. I slammed the laptop shut and sat there for a long moment, processing. The woman I'd married, the woman I'd trusted with everything, had been playing me for a fool. And she documented the whole thing like it was some kind of trophy collection. My phone rang. Debbie. "Carson, please, we need to talk." "No, we don't." "But I can explain. I'm sure you can." "You always were creative." "Carson, wait." I hung up and blocked her number. Then I called in sick to work, poured another cup of coffee, and started planning. The third thing you need to know about betrayal is that it changes you. It takes the person you used to be and burns him down to ash. What grows back isn't always prettier, but it's definitely stronger. And sometimes, it's meaner. The thing about revenge is that it's like architecture. You need a solid foundation and a clear blueprint, or the whole structure comes crashing down on your head. I spent the next 3 days planning, not brooding, not drinking myself into oblivion, not posting passive-aggressive memes on social media like some scorned teenager. Planning. First, I called Mrs. Lee, a private investigator I'd worked with on a few construction fraud cases. Tough as nails, pragmatic, and completely without sentiment. "You want surveillance on your wife and her boyfriend?" she asked during our meeting at a downtown coffee shop. "I want documentation. Times, places, financial records if possible. Everything legal and admissible. This for divorce proceedings. This is for justice." She studied me over her coffee cup. "Justice can be expensive. So can stupidity. Send me the bill." While Mrs. Lee worked her magic, I reached out to Jenny Lane, Trevor's wife. We'd met at the same barbecue where I'd first encountered her enlightened husband. She was sharp, funny, and apparently just as clueless as I'd been. "Carson, this is unexpected," she said when I called. "Jenny, I need to ask you something, and I need you to be honest. Have you noticed anything strange about Trevor lately?" A long pause. "Why do you ask?" "Because my wife has been acting strange, and I think there might be a connection." Another pause, longer this time. "Can you meet me for coffee? I think we need to talk." An hour later, we sat across from each other at a Starbucks near the Galleria. Jenny looked tired, older than I remembered. Her hands shook slightly as she stirred her latte. "He's been distant for months," she said quietly. "Working late, new clients he can't talk about, mysterious phone calls. Last week I found a hotel receipt in his pocket. When I asked about it, he said it was for a yoga retreat." A yoga retreat? In the middle of Houston? For one night. She laughed bitterly. "I may be naive, Carson, but I'm not stupid." I pulled out my phone and showed her one of the photos from Debbie's cloud account. Nothing explicit, just Debbie and Trevor having dinner at an upscale restaurant. Jenny's face went white. "That bastard. That absolute bastard." "I'm sorry, Jenny. I know this is hard." "Hard?" She laughed, but there was no humor in it. "Hard was watching my husband lie to my face for 6 months. This is clarifying." We spent the next hour comparing notes. Trevor's absences matched perfectly with Debbie's yoga classes. The mysterious phone calls happened at the same times. Even their stories about where they'd been had suspicious similarities. "So what do we do now?" Jenny asked. "Now we make sure everyone knows exactly what kind of people they are." The next day was Friday. Debbie worked at a marketing firm downtown, one of those open concept offices where privacy was a foreign concept and gossip spread faster than a computer virus. I showed up at noon with a bouquet of flowers and a gift bag, playing the role of the loving husband trying to win back his wife. The receptionist waved me through with a romantic smile. Debbie's desk was in the middle of the main floor, surrounded by her coworkers. Perfect. "Carson," she said, standing up quickly. "What are you doing here?" "Bringing you some things I thought you might need," I said, loudly enough for everyone to hear. I handed her the flowers, cheap carnations from the grocery store, and the gift bag. "Carson, maybe we should talk privately." "No need for privacy between husband and wife, right?" She opened the bag with trembling hands. Inside were all the lingerie sets I'd found hidden in her dresser, the ones she'd never worn for me, along with hotel receipts I'd printed from her credit card statements, and a USB drive labeled Greatest Hits in my neat architectural lettering. "What is this?" she whispered. "Your yoga gear. Thought you might want it back." Her face went from pale to red to pale again. Around us, her coworkers had stopped pretending to work and were staring openly. "Carson, please." "Oh, and make sure you check out that USB drive. Some really enlightening footage on there. Very flexible." I turned and walked away, leaving her standing there with a bag full of evidence and a dozen witnesses. Behind me, I could hear the whispers starting. My phone buzzed before I reached my car. Text from an unknown number. "This is Mrs. Felder, Debbie's supervisor. We need to talk." I texted back. "I'm not the one you need to talk to." That evening, Jenny called. Trevor came home in a rage. Says you humiliated Debbie at work, and now it's going to blow back on him. Is he worried about his reputation? Apparently. His yoga studio caters to suburban housewives. Adultery isn't exactly on brand for spiritual enlightenment. Shame about that. Carson, he's talking about confronting you. Says he's going to set the record straight. I smiled into the phone. Tell him I'll be at the gym tomorrow night. 7 o'clock. He knows which one. The gym was one of those 24-hour places near downtown. All chrome and mirrors and the smell of desperation mixed with protein powder. I'd been a member for 3 years but rarely used it. Too busy with work, with marriage, with the comfortable routine of a life that turned out to be built on lies. Tonight was different. Tonight I had motivation. I arrived at 6:30 and set up on a bench where I could watch the entrance. Raj had agreed to be my backup. Not that I expected trouble, but it never hurt to have a witness. You sure about this, man? Raj asked, adjusting the camera on his phone. This could go sideways fast. It's already sideways. I'm just straightening it out. Trevor arrived at 7:15, 20 minutes late because apparently punctuality wasn't part of his spiritual journey. He strutted through the door like he owned the place, all swagger and fake confidence. He spotted me immediately and walked over, chest puffed out like a rooster in a henhouse. We need to talk, he said. Talk away. Not here. Outside. I followed him to the parking lot, where his precious Mustang sat gleaming under the security lights. Candy apple red, custom rims, the kind of car a man buys when he's trying to prove something to the world. You embarrassed Debbie today, he said, crossing his arms. That was uncool, man. Uncool? You're sleeping with my wife and you're worried about cool? Look, these things happen. Adults deal with them like adults. You're right, they do. I pulled out my pocket knife and walked over to his car. What are you doing? Dealing with it like an adult. I knelt down and put the blade to his front tire. The hiss of escaping air was surprisingly satisfying. Stop! That's my car. And Debbie was my wife. Funny how these things work out. I moved to the second tire, then the third. Trevor stood there sputtering, too shocked to move. By the time he snapped out of it, I was working on the fourth. You're insane! Maybe, but I'm thorough. He rushed me then, all righteous anger and spiritual enlightenment. I sidestepped easily. Architecture requires good spatial awareness. And he stumbled past me into the side of his car. Easy there, Guru. Don't want to damage your chakras. He came at me again, swinging wild punches that would have embarrassed a middle schooler. I caught his wrist, twisted it just enough to get his attention, and drove my knee into his solar plexus. He doubled over, gasping. Here's the thing about adultery, Trevor. It's not a victimless crime. And here's the thing about me. I'm not a victim. I grabbed the gallon jug of protein shake from his gym bag and poured it over his car's hood, watching the sticky liquid run down the windshield. That should give you something to clean up. Consider it community service. He was still bent over, trying to breathe, when I walked away. Raj had gotten the whole thing on video, and Big Ray, the gym manager, had watched from the doorway with obvious amusement. You might want to call a tow truck, I told Trevor over my shoulder, and maybe an Uber. It's going to be a long walk home. The next morning, I woke up to 17 missed calls from Debbie and a text from Jenny. Trevor's car is in the shop, and he's walking funny. What did you do? I texted back, helped him with his flexibility. By noon, Raj had posted the video to a local Houston Facebook group called Epic Fails and Karma. The title read, Yoga Instructor Gets Stretched Out. Within hours, it had 3,000 views and 200 comments, most of them laughing at Trevor's pathetic fighting skills. Dude's got the fighting ability of a wet noodle, one comment read. Maybe he should try some yoga, said another. My personal favorite, Namaste away from other people's wives. The video went viral in our little corner of Houston. Trevor Lane, spiritual guru and enlightened being, became a meme. Screenshots of him doubled over in the parking lot appeared on Instagram with captions like, When your karma catches up, and Flexibility training gone wrong. Debbie called again that afternoon. This time I answered. Carson, this has to stop. You're ruining our lives. Your lives? Interesting choice of words. You know what I mean. People are talking. My boss is asking questions. Trevor's lost 3 clients already. Sounds like the free market at work. This isn't funny. You're right. It's hilarious. I'm warning you, Carson. If you don't stop this harassment, you'll what? Cheat on me? Too late. Lie to me? Already covered. Humiliate me? Been there, done that. I hung up and poured myself a beer. It was only 3 in the afternoon, but it had been a productive day. The fourth thing you need to know about betrayal is that revenge is like compound interest. It builds on itself, and the returns get better over time. The annual neighborhood block party was scheduled for the following Saturday. Normally, I would have made an excuse and stayed home. Too much forced socializing, too many conversations about property values in school districts. But this year was different. This year, I was the host. I'd volunteered to organize the whole thing, much to the surprise of Mrs. Blevins, our HOA president. She was used to handling these events herself, but she couldn't argue with enthusiasm. "It's wonderful to see you so engaged, Carson," she said during our planning meeting, "especially after everything you've been through." Word traveled fast in suburbia. Everyone knew about Debbie moving out, and most had heard rumors about why. The video of Trevor's parking lot humiliation had made its way through the neighborhood WhatsApp groups, along with creative interpretations of what it all meant. "I just want to bring the community together," I told her. "Maybe clear the air about a few things." I sent invitations to everyone on the block, plus a few special guests. Debbie, Trevor, Jenny, Mrs. Felder from Debbie's office, and Mr. Yates, Trevor's business partner at the yoga studio. Most RSVP'd yes, curiosity overcoming common sense. The party was set for Saturday afternoon in the community park. I arranged for catering, rented tables and chairs, even hired a DJ. No expense spared for what I privately called the Truth and Reconciliation BBQ. Debbie arrived fashionably late, wearing a sundress that probably cost more than most people's rent. She'd brought Trevor as her date, apparently deciding that subtlety was no longer necessary. He walked with a slight limp, a lingering reminder of our parking lot encounter. Jenny came alone, looking elegant and dangerous in a black cocktail dress. She'd filed for divorce 3 days earlier and seemed to be enjoying her newfound freedom. "Interesting guest list," she said, joining me by the drinks table. "I believe in transparency. Is that what we're calling it?" The party started normally enough. People mingled, ate barbecue, complained about the heat. But I could feel the tension building, like pressure in a steam engine. Everyone was waiting for something to happen. I didn't disappoint them. At exactly 4 o'clock, I tapped my beer bottle with a knife and called for attention. "Thanks for coming, everyone." I wanted to take a moment to share some exciting news with my neighbors and friends. The crowd gathered around, sensing drama. Debbie looked nervous. Trevor was scanning for exits. As most of you know, Debbie and I have been having some marriage difficulties. What you might not know is why. "Carson, don't," Debbie said quietly. "It turns out my wife has been taking private yoga lessons with Trevor here. Very private lessons. Very flexible lessons." I pulled out my phone and opened the AirDrop function. Within seconds, every iPhone in the crowd was receiving a carefully curated selection of photos from Debbie's Yoga Pics folder. The reaction was immediate and beautiful. Gasps, shocked laughter, the sound of marriages being discussed in urgent whispers. Mrs. Henderson dropped her potato salad. Mr. Garcia spit out his beer. "Carson, you bastard!" Debbie screamed, lunging for my phone. Trevor caught her arm. "Let's just go." "Oh no," I said. "The party's just getting started." That's when Trevor made his second mistake of the week. Emboldened by alcohol and embarrassment, he decided to take another swing at me. This time, I was ready. I ducked his clumsy punch and grabbed him by the shirt, using his momentum to spin him around and march him toward the community pool. He struggled, but architecture work had given me functional strength, while his yoga muscles were apparently just for show. "Time for some baptism by chlorine," I announced to the crowd. The splash was magnificent. Trevor surfaced, sputtering, his man bun soaked, his spiritual enlightenment temporarily waterlogged. His phone, which had been in his pocket, was now an expensive paperweight. The crowd cheered. Actually cheered. Apparently, Trevor hadn't been as popular in the neighborhood as he'd thought. "Anyone else want to share their thoughts on adultery?" I asked. Mrs. Blevins, bless her gossipy heart, stepped forward. "I think it's disgraceful. Absolutely disgraceful. We don't tolerate that kind of behavior in this community." Mr. Yates, Trevor's business partner, was staring at his phone with horror. "Trevor, is this real? These photos?" "I can explain. You're sleeping with married clients? Do you have any idea what this does to our liability insurance? Even Debbie's mother showed up, having been called by one of the neighbors. Mrs. Hargrove was a force of nature on her best days, and this wasn't one of her best days. Deborah Marie, what is the meaning of this? She demanded, waving her phone with its collection of incriminating photos. Mom, it's complicated. Adultery isn't complicated, young lady. It's simple. It's wrong. The party devolved into beautiful chaos. Trevor climbed out of the pool looking like a drowned rat. Debbie fled to her car in tears. Jenny raised her drink in a toast to new beginnings and old endings. As the crowd began to disperse, still buzzing with excitement, Mrs. Blevins pulled me aside. That was quite a show, Carson. Truth has a way of making a splash. Indeed it does. For what it's worth, I think you handled this with remarkable restraint. The day's not over yet. That night, alone in my house, I sat on the back porch with a beer and my laptop. The Houston Homewreckers blog had already posted about the party, complete with photos and a detailed account of Trevor's impromptu swimming lesson. The comments section was brutal and hilarious in equal measure. My phone buzzed. Text from an unknown number. This isn't over. I smiled and typed back, "You're absolutely right." 3 days after the block party, I discovered the final piece of Debbie and Trevor's betrayal. It was Raj who found it, actually, while helping me organize my finances for the divorce proceedings. "Dude, you need to see this," he said, pointing at my laptop screen. "These charges on your credit card, they're not yours, are they?" I looked at the statement. Hundreds of charges over the past 6 months. Hotel rooms, expensive dinners, weekend trips to Austin and San Antonio, all on my card, all signed by my loving wife. "She's been funding their affair with my money," I said quietly. "Gets worse. Look at this." Raj pulled up another screen. "She's been transferring money from your joint savings to an account I can't trace. Looks like they were planning to disappear together." The betrayal was complete. Not only had Debbie cheated on me, she'd been stealing from me to pay for it. And Trevor, the enlightened spiritual guru, had been happy to let another man finance his adultery. I called my lawyer first, then my bank, then Officer Del Rio at the Houston Police Department. Everything legal, everything by the book. I wasn't going to give them any ammunition to use against me. "This is definitely theft," Officer Del Rio confirmed after reviewing the evidence. "We can file charges if you want to press them." "I want to press everything. Charges, civil suits, whatever it takes." "What about your wife?" "She'll face serious consequences." She should have thought about that before she decided to rob me blind. While the legal wheels turned, I put the final phase of my plan into motion. I'd been tracking Trevor's schedule for a week, and I knew he'd be at his downtown condo on Thursday evening. Alone. I arrived at his building at 6 p.m., dressed in my best suit and carrying a briefcase like I belonged there. The doorman barely glanced at me as I walked through the lobby to the elevators. Trevor's condo was on the 15th floor. All glass and chrome and expensive furniture that probably cost more than my car. I knocked on the door and waited. "Carson?" He looked shocked to see me. "What are you doing here?" "We need to talk. May I come in?" He hesitated, then stepped aside. "Look, about the other day was nothing. Today is everything." I walked to his living room window and looked out at the Houston skyline. Nice view. Must cost a fortune. "Carson, if this is about money, it's about a lot of things. Money, respect, truth, but mostly it's about consequences." I turned to face him. "Did you really think I wouldn't find out about the credit cards? The transfers? The little nest egg you and Debbie were building for your new life together?" His face went pale. "I don't know what you're talking about." "Sure you do. $50,000, Trevor. That's what you stole from me. $50,000 to fund your spiritual journey into my wife's bed." It wasn't like that. It was exactly like that. I opened my briefcase and pulled out a stack of papers. Bank statements, credit card records, hotel receipts. All with your signatures, all paid for with my money. The police are very interested in this kind of thing. Trevor sank into his expensive leather chair. "What do you want?" "I want you to make a video. A full confession. Everything you did, everything you took, everything you planned. And I want you to send it to everyone you know. That's insane. I'll lose everything. You already lost everything. You just don't know it yet. I pulled out my phone and showed him the latest post on the Houston Homewreckers blog. Your business partner fired you this morning. Your yoga studio is closed pending investigation. Your wife's divorce lawyer is going after everything you own. And in about an hour, Channel 2 News is running a story about the yoga instructor who stole from his client's husband. Trevor stared at the phone, watching his life crumble in real time. The video is your chance to control the narrative, I continued. Show some remorse, take responsibility, maybe salvage a shred of dignity. And if I don't, then I release the really embarrassing stuff. The video of you crying in Debbie's arms about how your wife doesn't understand you. The photos of you trying on her lingerie. The text messages where you beg her to leave me and run away with you to Costa Rica. I leaned forward. Did you really think she wouldn't keep trophies, Trevor? Did you think she was any more loyal to you than she was to me? He made the video. 20 minutes of complete confession. Broadcast live to his Facebook page, his Instagram, his business accounts. Every detail of the affair, the theft, the planned escape. By the time he finished, he was crying. There, he said, wiping his eyes. Are you satisfied? Getting there. My phone buzzed. Text from Jenny. Turn on Channel 2. I found the remote and switched to the news. There was Debbie, being led out of her office in handcuffs. The reporter was explaining about the theft charges, the investigation, the community outrage over the affair. She turned herself in an hour ago, I told Trevor. Apparently, your video convinced her that cooperation was her best option. Trevor was staring at the TV in shock. She's really going to jail? White-collar crime is still crime. She'll probably get probation, community service, restitution. But her career is over. Her reputation is destroyed, and she'll be paying me back for the rest of her life. I stood up and straightened my tie. The funny thing is, if you two had just asked for a divorce, I probably would have been reasonable about it. Split the assets, moved on with our lives, maybe even stayed friends. Carson, I'm sorry. I'm really, truly sorry. I know you are. You're sorry you got caught. Sorry you lost everything. Sorry you trusted a woman who was using you just like she used me. But you're not sorry for what you did. If you could go back and do it again without consequences, you would. I walked to the door, then turned back. One more thing. I'm buying this building. The sale closes next week. Your lease expires at the end of the month, and I won't be renewing it. You have 30 days to find somewhere else to live. You can't do that. Actually, I can. Turns out, architecture pays better than yoga instruction, and I've been saving my money instead of stealing other people's. I left him sitting in his expensive condo, surrounded by his expensive things, contemplating his expensive mistakes. Outside, a thunderstorm was building over Houston. The sky was dark, the air thick with the promise of rain and cleansing and new beginnings. I drove home through the gathering storm, past the neighborhood where everyone now knew exactly what kind of man I really was. Not the quiet, patient architect they'd thought they knew, but something harder and more dangerous. In my driveway, I sat in my car for a moment, listening to the thunder and feeling the satisfaction of a job well done. Justice served, account settled, truth revealed. My phone rang. Unknown number. Hello? Carson, this is Mrs. Felder from Debbie's office. I wanted to thank you. Thank me? For exposing what she was doing. We've been investigating, and it turns out she was stealing from the company, too. Client funds, expense accounts, petty cash. You saved us from a much bigger scandal. I was just protecting myself. You were protecting all of us. If anyone else wants to betray you, they better take a number. You're fresh out of mercy. I smiled as the first drops of rain hit my windshield. Yes, I am.